The sun was just rising over the military camp, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. A gentle wind rustled the trees, but inside the main hall, tension was thick, like a storm waiting to explode. Lieutenant Ava Jackson, a young black woman with sharp mind and an iron will, stood at attention, her uniform crisp and spotless. Her boots reflected the morning light, and her hands rested firmly at her sides. She had trained for years to reach this point, but today, everything felt different. "Lieutenant Jackson," barked the commanding officer, his voice echoing across the hall. "Remove your uniform. You are not authorized to wear it here." Ava's heart skipped a beat. The words hit her like a cold wave. She looked at the officer, her eyes steady but her mind racing. The uniform wasn't just fabric. It was proof of every early morning, every late night, every test she had passed. It was her identity, her hard work. And now, someone was telling her to erase it with a single command. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Around her, other officers watched silently, some curious, some uncomfortable. Ava's jaw tightened. She didn't move immediately. Instead, she studied the officer, noting every twitch, every flicker of impatience. Her mind was calculating, planning her next move. "Sir," she said finally, her voice calm but firm, "I am fully authorized to wear this uniform. I have completed all training and earned every badge and stripe I carry." The officer's eyes narrowed. "Rules are rules, Lieutenant. This isn't up for debate." Ava swallowed hard. She could feel her pulse in her throat. She knew arguing here might make things worse. But silence felt like surrender. She needed another way, a way to prove herself without giving in. She glanced down at the polished boots that had carried her through countless trials and felt a spark of determination. She turned and walked away from the officer slowly, every step measured, purposeful. The hall felt colder as she passed, the whispers of other officers brushing against her ears. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Deep inside, she knew this was not the end. It was the beginning of a challenge that would test everything she believed in. Outside, the camp was coming to life. Jets roared in the distance, their engines slicing to the morning calm. Ava's eyes followed the trail of smoke in the sky. Somewhere out there, the F-22 Raptors waited. She had flown them before. She knew their power, their speed, their unforgiving nature. And she also knew that one day she would need to show the world that she belonged among them. For now, she focused on her next step. She walked toward the training area, her mind racing with possibilities. Each step was a promise to herself. She would prove them wrong. She would show that her uniform was not just a piece of cloth. It was a symbol of skill, courage, and determination. As she reached the training hangar, she paused for a moment and let her gaze drift upward. The first F-22 of the day lifted off gracefully, slicing through the sky with power and precision. Ava's chest tightened with a mixture of awe and longing. That would be her soon. She would take to the skies, and no one, no rule, no person would ever take that from her. But for now, the challenge remained. The whispers of doubt, the rules of judgment, they all pressed down on her. And yet, in that moment, Ava felt a fire ignite within her. She didn't need anyone to validate her. She would create her own path, one daring step at a time. And as the sun rose higher, casting long shadows over camp, Ava Jackson made a silent vow. This was not the end of her story. It was the start of something bigger, something that would shake the camp, challenge the rules, and prove once and for all that a black woman could soar higher than anyone ever imagined. The engines of the jets roared in the distance again, echoing her determination. She clenched her fists, feeling the thrill of what was to come. And deep down, she knew that soon the world would watch her rise. The morning sun had fully risen over the camp, casting a warm glow across the hangars and training grounds. Ava Jackson walked with purpose, her boots crunching on the gravel. Her mind was still buzzing from the confrontation in the hall. The officer's words, cold and dismissive, replayed in her head. "Remove your uniform." That command had tried to strip away more than her clothing. It had tried to strip away her identity. But Ava wasn't the type to surrender. Not now. Not ever. She reached the edge of the hangar and paused, looking at the lineup of F-22 F-22 Raptors, their sleek bodies gleaming under the sunlight. Each one looked like a predator, powerful and untouchable. Ava's hands itched to touch the controls, to feel the raw energy of the jet beneath her. She knew she had the skill, the training, and the courage, but skill alone wasn't enough. She had to prove it, not just to herself, but to everyone who doubted her. Ava pulled her tablet from her bag, scanning the flight simulations she had secretly been practicing at night. Every maneuver, every evasive turn, every takeoff and landing. She had studied it all. Her fingers traced the patterns on the screen, like a pianist practicing a difficult piece. This was more than training. This was a rebellion against the doubt, against the rules that tried to hold her back. She didn't notice a shadow falling over her until a voice spoke, low and cautious. "You're really pushing yourself, aren't you?" Ava looked up. It was Sergeant Daniels, a veteran pilot who had always been a quiet observer of her skills. He wasn't the type to offer praise easily. His eyes studied her, sharp and calculating, but there was a hint of curiosity, maybe even respect. "I have to," Ava said simply, returning her focus to the tablet. "If I don't prove myself, no one else will." Daniels nodded slowly. "It's not just about flying. It's about making them see you can't be ignored." Ava's jaw tightened. That was exactly the point. She didn't want to fight with words or arguments. She wanted her actions to speak, loud and clear. The rest of the day passed in a blur of rigorous training. Ava ran through physical drills, technical checks, and mental simulations. Sweat rolled down her forehead. Her muscles screamed, but she pushed harder. Every mistake was a lesson. Every success was fuel. The other pilots watched from a distance, whispers of admiration hidden behind polite nods. Even the instructors were beginning to notice. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the runway, Ava knew it was time for the real test. She approached the cockpit of an F-22, the controls gleaming like the edge of a blade. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with determination. Every lever, every button, every gauge, it was all familiar. She had prepared for this moment in silence, alone, away from judgmental eyes. The engines roared to life beneath her. The vibration shook through her body, reminding her of the raw power she was about to command. She gripped the controls, feeling the weight of responsibility and the thrill of freedom all at once. And then she lifted off. The jet surged forward, slicing through the air, leaving the camp behind in a blur. Ava executed maneuver after maneuver, each one precise, daring, and flawless. Her eyes scanned every readout, her mind calculating every move. Below her, the camp seemed small and insignificant. Yet every pair of eyes on the ground was fixed on her, some in disbelief, some in awe. She knew this was only the beginning. Proving herself here, in front of the camp, was the first step. She still had battles ahead, rules to challenge, doubts to erase, and limits to shatter. But as the wind whipped past her face and the ground fell away beneath the F-22's shadow, Ava felt an unshakable truth settle in her chest. She was unstoppable. The day ended with her jet landing smoothly, engines cooling with a low, satisfied hum. She stepped out, her uniform once again immaculate, her eyes fierce with quiet triumph. She had shown a glimpse of her power, but she knew the real challenge was yet to come. And as the sun set behind the hangars, casting golden light over the camp, Ava Jackson walked with fire in her soul, ready for whatever would try to stop her next. The night had fallen over the camp, but Ava Jackson couldn't sleep. The stars above were bright and endless, reflecting the turmoil inside her mind. The day's flight had been perfect. Precise maneuvers, flawless landings, every move executed with skill and confidence. Yet, the satisfaction of success was mixed with unease. The commanding officer's words still echoed in her head. Rules are rules. Ava sat on the edge of her bed, uniform still pressed and clean, boots polished. She stared at the ceiling, thinking about the opportunity that had appeared unexpectedly that afternoon, a chance to take the F-22 on a solo mission over the camp. A mission that could prove everything. Her heart raced just imagining it, but the decision wasn't simple. Accepting the mission could mean breaking protocol. It could anger her superiors further. There was risk of failure, risk of judgment, risk of being seen as reckless. And yet, Ava knew that hesitation would not bring her anywhere. She had spent years fighting for respect, for recognition, for the right to simply exist in the uniform she had earned. Her mind wandered back to her childhood, to the first time she had climbed into a small training plane. Her father had looked at her with pride, saying, "Fly like no one expects you to. Show them what you're made of." That memory filled her chest with warmth and courage. This wasn't just a test of skill. It was a test of identity, of the life she had fought to create for herself. A soft knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. Sergeant Daniels peeked in, his expression calm but serious. "You're still thinking about it," he said, stepping inside. "I can see it in your eyes. That mission, it's bigger than just a flight. It's your chance to show them all that nothing can stop you." Ava nodded slowly. "I know, but what if I fail? What if I prove nothing and give them a reason to take this away from me?" Daniels walked closer, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "You've already proven more than most ever will. You're not flying this to impress them. You're flying to honor yourself. That's what matters." His words echoed in her mind long after he left. Ava closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. She felt the tension building inside her chest, a mix of fear and excitement. Finally, she stood. Every step toward the hangar felt like a drumbeat in her heart. She reached the cockpit, running her fingers over controls, feeling the familiar grooves and switches. She looked up at the stars and whispered to herself, "This is my moment. No one can take it from me." The engines roared to life beneath her, shaking the hangar floor with raw power. Ava strapped herself in, her eyes scanning every gauge, every dial. The moment of truth had arrived. The takeoff was imminent. Her hands tightened on the controls, heart pounding, mind laser-focused. As she lifted off, the wind rushing past, the camp below seemed smaller than ever. Everything she had fought for, every long night, every judgment, every step she had taken to get here, all led to this moment. Her flight was no longer just about proving her skill. It was about proving her right to exist, to belong, to soar without limitations. Mid-air, a sudden challenge appeared, a strong gust, unexpected turbulence. Ava's instincts kicked in. She adjusted, countered, and held steady. The jet responded like an extension of her body, smooth and powerful. Every move required split-second decisions, precision, and courage. Her mind raced, but she felt in control, alive, unstoppable. As the F-22 glided over the camp, her eyes scanned the ground. Faces watched, some skeptical, some in awe. Ava Jackson had made her choice. She decided to fly, to take control, to step beyond fear and doubt. And in that decision, she felt a fire ignite within her, a fire that would not be extinguished. The sun began to rise again, painting the horizon in hues of orange and gold. Ava Jackson, in her F-22 Raptor, knew one truth. Whatever awaited her after this flight, she had made the boldest decision of her life. And nothing, not rules, not doubt, not anyone, could take away her courage. The hangar doors thundered open as Ava Jackson taxied the F-22 Raptor onto the runway. The engines roared, shaking the ground beneath her like a living beast. Her hands gripped the controls tightly, heart pounding with adrenaline. Every muscle in her body was alert. Today, she wasn't just a pilot. She was a storm about to unleash. The camp seemed to hold its breath as the sleek fighter jet surged forward. In moments, the wheels lifted off the runway, leaving the solid ground behind. Ava's eyes scanned the sky, focusing on the horizon, but her mind was a whirlwind of calculations and instinct. The Raptor responded to her every move, twisting, banking, and diving with precision. Below her, the camp appeared small and fragile, a playground compared to raw power beneath her. Yet, Ava felt the weight of every gaze on the ground. The officers, the soldiers, the skeptics, all watching. She knew that this flight was more than training. This flight was her statement. Her proof that she belonged here, in the sky, commanding the most advanced fighter jet in the world. She executed her first maneuver, a sharp roll that sent the Raptor twisting through the clouds. The air pressure pressed against her, her stomach flipping, yet her hands stayed steady. Ava's mind calculated every turn, every angle. She had trained for this moment, but the thrill of doing it for herself and not for approval made her focus sharper than ever. Suddenly, turbulence hit, a powerful gust throwing the jet off balance. Ava's eyes narrowed. She adjusted the controls instantly, countering the force, keeping the Raptor steady. Each second was critical. Hesitation could be fatal. Sweat rolled down her forehead, but she didn't falter. The sky was unforgiving, and she was ready. The flight grew more daring. Ava climbed higher, then dove low, skimming the edges of the camp. She banked sharply, twisting the jet through a loop, her body pressed against the seat by the sheer force of speed. The wind screamed past her, but Ava felt exhilarated, alive in a way words could never capture. This was freedom, power, and defiance all wrapped into one. Her mind flashed to the officer's words from days before, the command to remove her uniform. She clenched her jaw, letting the memory fuel her determination. She was proving more than skill. She was proving courage, resilience, and identity. And as she rolled the jet once more, flipping upside down over the camp, a cheer broke out among the watching soldiers. Ava couldn't see it from the cockpit, but she could feel it in the vibrations of the ground below. Suddenly, an alarm beeped, a warning signal. One of the instruments was malfunctioning. Ava's heart skipped a beat, but she didn't panic. Years of training kicked in. She analyzed, calculated, and acted. With precise adjustments, she corrected the course, keeping the jet steady. The Raptor obeyed her will, a machine bending to her command. Ava decided to push further. She climbed, banking sharply at impossible angles, twisting and turning with unmatched precision. Each maneuver left the camp below gasping. The skeptics' eyes widened in disbelief. The supporters couldn't contain their admiration. Every second, Ava wrote her story in the sky. Bold, fearless, unforgettable. As the flight drew to an end, she prepared for landing. The sun was dipping low, casting golden streaks across the clouds. The Raptor touched down smoothly, the engines roaring a final defiant note. Ava Jackson exhaled, her hands trembling slightly, but her eyes were fierce with triumph. She had flown with skill, courage, and heart, and the message was clear. She would not be ignored. Stepping out of the cockpit, her uniform immaculate despite the intense flight, Ava's gaze swept across the camp. The whispers had turned into astonished murmurs. The fire of doubt in the eyes of her observers was replaced with something else. Respect, awe, and, most importantly, recognition. But Ava knew this was not the end. The flight had proven her skill, yes, but the real battles, the fights against bias, the fight for equality, the fight to inspire others, were only beginning. She had soared higher than most dared to dream, and she would continue to rise, one daring flight at a time. And as the last rays of the sun glinted off the Raptor's wings, Ava Jackson looked up at the sky, feeling an unshakable truth in her heart. The sky wasn't her limit, it was her stage. Ava Jackson stepped out of the cockpit, boots crunching against the tarmac, the wind from the landing jet ruffling her hair. Her chest heaved, not from exhaustion, but from adrenaline and triumph. Every fiber of her being pulsed with the energy of the flight she had just completed. Below her, the camp seemed to hum with a different energy, an energy she had awakened. The soldiers and officers had gathered, their eyes wide with astonishment. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, rising into whispers of disbelief and admiration. Even those who had doubted her now stared in shock. Ava's heart raced, not out of fear, but because she knew she had shifted something fundamental. The air was electric, thick with the realization that what they had witnessed was extraordinary. Lieutenant Ava Jackson, a black woman once told to remove her uniform, had just commanded an F-22 Raptor through a breathtaking display of skill, precision, and fearlessness. And now, every eye in the camp was on her. A few steps away, Sergeant Daniels watched with a quiet, satisfied smile. He had seen her potential before, but even he was surprised at the boldness and control she had displayed. Ava caught his gaze and nodded, a silent acknowledgement of shared understanding. She didn't need words. The flight had spoken for her. The commanding officer who had earlier demanded she remove her uniform approached, his expression unreadable. The camp held its breath. Would he scold her? Would he punish her for defying protocol, or had he been forced to confront the undeniable truth of her skill? Ava stood tall, shoulders squared, eyes steady. She didn't flinch, didn't shrink. She waited. The officer circled, studying her as if seeing her for first time. Then, slowly, he exhaled. His eyes softened, not entirely with approval, but with acknowledgement. "You flew well, Lieutenant," he said finally, his voice low. "Better than expected." Ava felt a flicker of relief, but she kept her composure. She knew this was only the first step. Recognition from one officer didn't erase years of struggle, but was a crack in the wall of doubt. Around her, the reactions were mixed. Some officers nodded in respect, admiration flickering across their faces. Others whispered among themselves, still struggling to reconcile their biases with the undeniable display they had just witnessed. Ava paid them no mind. She had always known that breaking barriers was never about pleasing everyone. It was about standing firm in her own truth. Soldiers began approaching, some timidly, some boldly. "Lieutenant, that was incredible," one young pilot said, eyes wide. "I've never seen anyone handle the Raptor like that." Ava smiled, a flicker of pride in her eyes. "Thank you. It's all about focus and control. Anyone can learn it with practice." The camp seemed to buzz with new energy, a sense of possibility. Ava realizing that her flight had done more than prove her skill. It had inspired those who watched. It wasn't just about her anymore. Her courage, her defiance of doubt, her determination to rise above prejudice, had become a beacon for others who had faced similar challenges. Yet, amid the triumph, a quiet tension lingered. The commanding officer's approval was limited, and the whispers of skepticism still hovered like shadows. Ava knew this was far from over. Recognition today did not guarantee equality tomorrow. The battles ahead, the ones that mattered most, were just beginning. She looked around at the camp, her eyes landing on the young cadets watching her with wide, hopeful eyes. Some of them would follow in her footsteps, carrying the fire of determination she had ignited, and that thought made her chest swell with quiet pride. Ava Jackson had flown, had conquered, and had made her mark. But she knew the journey was not yet complete. The sky had shown her power, and the camp had witnessed her courage. Now, it was time to prepare for what came next, the challenges that would test not just her skill, but her will, her spirit, and the legacy she was beginning to create. And as the sun dipped behind the hangars, casting long shadows across the camp, Ava Jackson stood tall, ready for the next chapter. The world had seen a glimpse of her greatness, and they would never forget it. The morning light spilled across the camp, golden and soft, yet could not match the fire burning in Ava Jackson's eyes. After yesterday's flight, the air was different. Whispers had become discussions. Skepticism had turned into admiration. But Ava knew the real test was still ahead. Not in the sky, but on the ground, where recognition and respect were earned in ways more complicated than skill alone. She walked through the camp, uniform crisp, boots clicking sharply against concrete. Soldiers stepped aside, some nodding, some still staring in disbelief. The commanding officer approached, flanked by senior staff, his face a mass of authority. Ava's chest tightened, not from fear, but anticipation. Today, the camp would either finally acknowledge her, or she would face new obstacles. "Lieutenant Jackson," the officer began, voice steady but layered with weight, "your flight yesterday was impressive, remarkable, even—" He paused, studying her reaction. "You have shown skill, courage, and determination that cannot be ignored. Effective immediately, your achievements will be officially recognized." Ava's heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, disbelief threatened to overtake her. Official recognition, medals, acknowledgement, every moment of doubt, every whisper against her, every obstacle she had faced, all of it had led here. Yet, even in triumph, Ava's mind remained alert. This recognition was important, yes, but the real battles against bias, against the lingering doubts of others, were still ahead. "Thank you, sir," she said, voice steady, yet soft with emotion. "I'm honored." The officer nodded, then gestured toward a small ceremony being prepared in the training yard. Soldiers gathered, standing tall, some smiling, some unsure how to react. Ava stepped forward as the medal was pinned to her chest. The sun caught the gleaming metal, reflecting her image, strong, proud, unstoppable. For a moment, everything felt right. But as the crowd applauded, a ripple of tension passed through the camp. Some officers whispered behind their hands, murmuring doubts. Others simply stared, realizing that the rules, the protocols, the expectations, they were being rewritten before their eyes. Ava felt a flicker of satisfaction at that thought. Change was uncomfortable for some, but change was necessary. Sergeant Daniels approached, his quiet smile full of pride. "You've done more than prove yourself, Ava. You've shown everyone here what true courage looks like." Ava nodded, swallowing the lump of emotion in her throat. She knew he was right. This was bigger than one flight, one medal, or one day. Her actions had begun to create ripples. She had started to shift minds, challenge old rules, and inspire those who watched. But the twist, the real challenge, came unexpectedly. A message arrived from the higher command, requesting her presence at a briefing immediately. The camp buzzed with speculation. Was it promotion? A special mission? Or another test? Ava's pulse quickened. Recognition was one thing. Now, the stakes were about to rise even higher. She straightened her uniform, her mind clear, and walked toward the command tent. Every step echoed determination. She knew that every challenge she had faced, every doubt, every insult, every moment of uncertainty, had prepared her for this moment. The Raptor in the sky had been only the beginning. Now, the real proving ground awaited. As Ava entered the tent, eyes fixed firmly on the senior officers, she felt a strange calm settle over her. She had fought, she had soared, she had triumphed, and she was ready for what came next. Her courage had brought her recognition, her skill had earned respect, but her determination, unyielding, relentless, would carry her beyond every limit. And as the officers briefed her on a mission of unprecedented scale, Ava realized one undeniable truth. She had not only claimed her place in skies, she had become a symbol of what was possible. For herself, for the camp, for everyone who had ever been told they didn't belong. The medal on her chest glinted in the morning light, but Ava's eyes were on the horizon, beyond the camp, beyond the rules, beyond every doubt. She was ready to soar higher than anyone could imagine. The camp was quiet that morning, the soft light of dawn spilling over the hangars and runways. Ava Jackson walked slowly, her boots making steady clicks against the concrete. Her uniform, once questioned and challenged, now shone with medals and badges, symbols of skill, courage, and relentless determination. But Ava knew that the real victory was not in the medals. It was in what they represented. She paused at the edge of the flight line, looking at the F-22 Raptors gleaming in the sunlight. Each jet seemed to hum with potential, a mirror of the journey she had taken. Her heart swelled with pride, not just for herself, but for every person who had doubted her, for every young cadet watching, wondering if they could rise above the limits others imposed. Word of her flights and her unwavering resolve had spread quickly. Across the camp, young pilots whispered her name with admiration. "She did it! She really did it," they said. "No one can stop her." Ava had become more than a pilot. She had become a symbol, a reminder that courage and skill, paired with determination, could break barriers that once seemed unbreakable. She walked past a group of cadets, their eyes wide with wonder. One young girl, barely old enough to step onto the tarmac, looked up at Ava and whispered, "I want to fly like you one day." Ava smiled, kneeling to meet her gaze. "Then start dreaming now," she said softly. "Train hard. Believe in yourself. No one can tell you who you are except you." The words lingered in the air, heavier than any medal, more powerful than any flight maneuver. Ava realized then that her true legacy would not be her own achievements, but the inspiration she sparked in others. Every young woman, every cadet who felt overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed, they could now see a path, because she had carved one with courage. Yet, even in this quiet triumph, Ava felt a familiar pull of the sky. She walked back toward the hangar, her eyes scanning the Raptor she had flown countless times. The engine seemed to call to her, a reminder that the journey was far from over. There were new heights to reach, new challenges to conquer, new limits to defy. As she climbed into the cockpit, the wind brushing past her face, Ava thought of the first day she had been told to remove her uniform. The memory brought a small, fierce smile to her lips. From doubt and opposition, she had forged opportunity and triumph. From whispers and skepticism, she had built respect and recognition. And now, she would take it even further. The engines roared to life beneath her, and the F-22 lifted off with effortless grace. Ava soared above the camp, the wind roaring past her, the clouds rushing by. Each maneuver was precise, fearless, beautiful, a living testament to her journey. She was no longer just a pilot proving herself. She was a symbol of possibility, of courage, of legacy. And below, the camp watched, eyes wide, hearts racing, minds inspired. They saw not only the skill, but the message. No matter the obstacles, no matter doubt, anyone could rise, anyone could soar, anyone could leave a mark that would endure. As Ava Jackson climbed higher, the sun rising behind her, she felt a quiet satisfaction deep in her chest. The battles she had faced, the rules she had challenged, the judgment she had defied, they had all been worth it. And still, the sky called her forward. For Ava, the legacy was just beginning. Every flight, every mission, every act of courage would ripple outward, inspiring others to rise, to challenge, to believe. The medals on her chest were heavy with achievement, but the real weight, the real power, was a hope she carried in the hearts of those who watched. And as she disappeared into the endless blue, one thought rang true. The sky was no longer a limit. It was a canvas. An Ava Jackson story. The story of courage, determination, and unbreakable spirit was painted across it for the world to see.